All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fruita City Council meeting. Deb, would you please call roll?
Councillor Buck. Here. Councillor Lenhart. Here. Councillor Harvey.
Here.
Councillor Cry.
Here.
Councillor O'Brien.
Here.
And Councillor Bremen will be here, but he will be late.
All right, thank you. If you'd all please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda?
No changes to the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move to approve tonight's agenda.
Second. Councillor Lenhart.
Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Buck.
Yes.
Councillor O'Brien.
Yes.
Councillor Cry.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, we do not have any proclamations or presentations tonight, so we're going to move into the public participation. So this section is set aside for the city council to listen to comments by the public regarding items that do not otherwise appear on the agenda. Generally, the city council will not discuss the issue and will not take an official action under this section of the agenda. We'd please ask you to limit your comments to a 3-minute period. So is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on something not on the agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public participation and we'll move into the consent agenda. So the consent agenda, these are items where all conditions or requirements have been agreed to or met prior to the time they come before council for final action. These items will all be approved by a single motion of the council. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the public if there's anybody that'd like to speak on something on the consent agenda. All right, hearing none, I'll bring it back to council. Does council have any questions or do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Lenhart.
Yes.
Councillor O'Brien.
Yes.
Councillor Cry.
Yes.
Councillor Buck.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our public hearings. And so we've got 5 public hearings tonight. And so with each one of those, we're going to have a presentation and then we'll open it up for public comment and then bring it back to council. So our first item is a special event liquor permit. And so I'm going to turn this over to our city clerk, Deb Woods.
Evening, Mayor and City Council. Deb Woods, Deputy City Clerk. And I'm presenting the special event liquor permit application from the Community Hospital, Colorado West Healthcare System, Radiation Oncology, Cornhole Tournament fundraiser. The event is scheduled to be held in Civic Center Memorial Park on Saturday, October 2nd from 12 to 8:30 p.m. And this will be the second year that Community Hospital has held this event, with the last one being held in 2019. Diagram of the proposed beer tent with the licensed premises outlined in red was included in the council packet. And the area will be enclosed with metal fencing, and the hospital's application states that wristbands will be issued to those who have presented ID to show that they are 21 or over. And the one entrance exit and emergency entrance exit will be monitored, as well as a perimeter to make sure no alcohol enters or leaves the area. Fruita Chief of Police Dave Kraus reviewed the hospital's statement that there is nothing that would prohibit the issuance of the license. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation to the City Council that the application for the special event permit be approved, subject to the following conditions. The entrance and exits shall be monitored closely and continuously by event staff in order to prevent alcoholic beverages from going into or out of the area. The licensee needs to be aware that they are solely responsible for control of the licensed premises in regards to alcohol possession, consumption, and adherence to state and municipal laws. And all other procedures presented by the Community Hospital, Colorado West Healthcare System will be followed. And this concludes my presentation. Maggie Struminger with Community Hospital is in the audience this evening. Maggie, did I leave anything out?
All right, thank you, Deb. Is there anybody, we're going to open this up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item? All right, hearing none, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to council. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Nope.
All right, then do we have a motion?
I move we approve the application for a special events permit for Community Hospital, Colorado West Healthcare System to sell beer at the Civic Center Memorial Park for the Radiation Oncology fundraising event on Saturday, October 2nd, 2021, from 12 to 8:30 PM, subject to the above stated conditions.
Second.
Counselor Buck,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Yes.
Counselor O'Brien,
Yes.
Counselor Harvey,
Yes.
Counselor Lenhart.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, our second public hearing is ordinance 2021-17, a second reading, annexing 16.21 acres of property located at 1930 Highway 6 and 50 into the city of Fruita. We've got our city planner, Henry Hemphill, here to present on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Henry, and I'll be giving the staff presentation on ordinance tonight. So this is the second reading of ordinance 2021-17 to annex a property located at 1930 Highway 6 and 50. The subject property is currently zoned AFT, or Agricultural, Forestry, and Transitional, which is a county zoning designation, and is approximately, this says 16.82, that's what the assessor says, but the annexation map that was submitted is roughly 16.21, so give or take a bit. The legal notice for this annexation and the annexation schedule itself is there's a bunch of dates to hit with annexations as they're set forth with state statute and our land use code, so trying to mesh those up. However, the legal notice that's required is after the first resolution that happened on July 6th, staff initiated the required 4 consecutive week public notice in the local newspaper, and that was accomplished July 14th, July 21st, July 28th, and August 4th. That set the hearing date to determine whether or not this annexation would be eligible to be annexed into the city limits, and that occurred on August 17th, and a resolution was passed by the city council on that night. In addition, the first reading of an ordinance, so an introduction to tonight's meeting, that is set forth by our city charter to introduce ordinances. And this was accomplished again on August 17th. The first reading is just an initiation of the reading and tells the clerk to actually notice this application for tonight. Furthermore, the legal notice postcards that were sent out that advertised the planning commission meeting also advertised this meeting. And so we tried to make sure that obviously there was adequate public notice with regards to this annexation. And so tonight we're seeing the annexation, the second reading of an ordinance to annex a property, and then subsequent presentation after this by ordinance would be to zone it. Legal notice prior to the planning commission meetings required to happen a minimum of 15 days prior to that. And that happened on June 23rd as postcards, June 24th for the sign posting, and June 23rd for the legal ad in the newspaper. Here are 2 photos. One is our legal notice signs that we put on the property. You can see here, they're out in front. If you guys have ever driven by, this is something that you would recognize. And then the map on the lower right-hand corner is our buffer area. And so we're required by the code to either go 350 feet out or to get 20 unique properties, whichever comes first. And usually within the city limits, if you're downtown, you get that 20 when you're at 350 foot radius around the subject property. This is a large property with many larger properties around it. So we had to spread out our legal notice boundary to get those 20. That's why you see a lot more of these properties highlighted in blue. But nonetheless, we did accomplish the 20 unique properties. Here is a zoning map of the subject or of the area with the subject property here highlighted in black, and then an aerial photograph. You can see we've got our C1 zone district that was recently adopted in our land use code along the Highway 6 and 50 corridor with some mostly county zoning surrounding the subject property to the north. Here's a clip of our urban growth, or not urban, our future land use map that has our urban growth boundary on it. And you can see here in the pink, the C1 is the the suggested zone designation, with this dotted line being the urban growth boundary. So anything within this urban growth boundary would essentially be supported for annexation. And so that's where the first resolution comes in as, hey, like, should we initiate the readings of the ordinances to actually proceed with annexation? And so this future land use map makes recommendations to property owners, developers, elected officials, appointed officials, and staff about how to continue to make these decisions as we move forward with annexing properties. Jump into approval criteria. That blue is kind of hard to see, but there's nine approval criteria that must be considered. I'm not going to go into detail on each one of these 9. That you had the staff report and the annexation impact report along with the submittal. And so the staff does anticipate or does believe that this application does meet all 9 of these approval criteria, with some not having to be met with regards to the sewer. Sewer is not close, but this application, this property is large enough to serve with on-site wastewater as far as a septic system is concerned for any type of use that we're going to occur, because the sewer's, more than 400 feet away. So this application, I touched on it before, does meet the state statutes required for the 1/6 contiguity. And so what that means is, does 1/6 of the property touch the existing city limits? And that's been established as yes, that's true. And then more importantly, is it within the city's urban growth boundary? And I've touched on that as well. And so with that said, forward onto the Planning Commission, public comments, review comments, and the recommendation. The Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council by a vote of 5-0 at their July 13th meeting. No written public comments have been received. No reviewer expressed any concerns, and staff recommends approval of this annexation petition. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Henry. With that, we're going to open it up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item? All right, hearing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Are there any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we adopt ordinance 2021-17, annexing approximately 16.21 acres of property located at 1930 Highway 6 and 50 into the city of Fruita.
Second.
Counselor Cry,
Yes.
Counselor O'Brien, Counselor Lenhart,
Yes.
Counselor Harvey,
Yes.
Counselor Buck.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right. With that, we're going to move into our third public hearing, ordinance 2021-18, a second reading, request to approve an ordinance zoning newly annexed property containing 16.21 acres and located at 1930 Highway 6 and 50. And we've got our city planner, Henry Hemphill, to present again today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading of ordinance 2021-18. This is to zone the property that was just annexed by ordinance into the city limits as a C1 zone district. We'll go to legal notice. This is, there's no state statute that's required on this one like it was on the annexation. This is only set forth by our land use code, and that all was accomplished or needs to be accomplished in accordance with 17.01.130 of the land use code. And that's a 15-day minimum before the Planning Commission meeting. Postcards went out June 23rd. The sign posting on the property happened on June 24th, and a legal ad in the paper happened on June 23rd, advertising both the Planning Commission date and then tonight's City Council meeting. Here's a zoning map. The C1 zone district is along this Highway 6 and 50 corridor and is set up in our land use code for allowed uses that you've had in your that do support that type of use along the highway. The Fruita master plan does support the C1 zone district in this area, and which is why the applicant did choose to petition for this zone district and move forward with an application. In accordance with the review criteria set forth in section 17.13.060, an official zoning map amendment like this would need to meet the first criteria, which is the amendment compatible with surrounding land uses? and is consistent with city's goals, policies, and master plan? And that answer is yes, it is consistent. And the allowed uses along Highway 6 and 50 are shown in the land use code in our this area. And then it only needs to meet another one with these and or statements. So the number 5 is the zoning amendment is incidental to the annexation, and the proposed zoning is consistent with the city's goals, policies, and master plan. And so staff feels that these 2 criteria and in all have been met, and do recommend approval of this proposed recommendation from the applicant of a commercial 1 or a C1 zone district. And so Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 5-0 at their July 13th public hearing. No written public comments were received, and no reviewer expressed any concerns with this rezone. And again, staff recommends the subject property be zoned commercial 1 or C1. That concludes my presentation.
All right. Do we have the applicant here?
Yeah.
Sorry, we missed you on the last one.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Tracy States, and I'm with River City Consultants. We represent the applicant. The address of my business is 215 Pitkin Avenue in Grand Junction. And I didn't prepare anything for this evening. We're in concurrence with staff and always appreciate such a thorough job that they do. Just here to answer any questions you might have.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to open up to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to council if there's any questions. All right, with that, we're going to open up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak on this item? All right, hearing none, I'll bring it back to council. Are there any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would also move that we adopt ordinance 2021-18 and ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Fruita by zoning approximately 16.21 acres of property located at 1930 Highway 6 and 50 to a commercial 1 or C1 zone.
Second.
Counselor Harvey,
Yes.
Counselor O'Brien, Counselor Lenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Cry,
Yes.
Counselor Beck,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
All right, our next public hearing is ordinance 2021-19, a second reading. Request to approve an ordinance annexing 25.96 acres of property located at 954 19 Road into the city of Fruita. Got our city planner, Henry Hemphill, presenting on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Eventually, you guys will will get sick of these presentations, and maybe we'll combine it. But this is a second reading of an ordinance 2021-19, the Fruita Copper Creek annexation is the project name. This is application, land development application 2021-27, located at 954 19 Road. The property is currently zoned URR, Urban Residential Reserve, and this is the county zoning designation. And like the mayor said, this is a approval to annex approximately 25.96 acres into the city limits. So legal notice again is set forth by both state statute and our land use code. So there's a bunch of dates that need to line up, and the first resolution to introduce this to the city council to set a hearing date to actually determine the eligibility. That is set forth by state statute and had happened on July 6th, 2021. And at that point, it initiates to the city clerk to advertise for 4 consecutive weeks prior to the resolution to find the property eligible. That's set forth by state statute, and that occurred on July 14th, July 21st, July 28th, and August 4th. And that posted notice is really the only required legal notice set forth by state statute to inform the public of a subsequent annexation application. And then on August 17th, the city council adopted a resolution to find the property eligible to annex. And what that means is, does it have the 1/6 contiguity required to be considered for annexation? And the 1/6 contiguity must happen when it touches the city limits, at least 1/6 of the property. On July 13th, the Planning Commission considered the annexation and the zone request. And also on August 17th, we adopted a first reading of an ordinance that set tonight's hearing date. And again, the city clerk posted legal notice advertising tonight's public notice. Another way that we advertise tonight's meeting is our legal notice postcards that advertise the Planning Commission meeting and tonight's meeting of the City Council. And so those accomplished at least 15 days prior to the planning commission meeting. And those happened on June 23rd for the postcards, June 24th for the sign posting, and again, June 23rd for the legal ad in the newspaper. Here are the sign postings on the property that advertise the annexation and the zone request. And here's a legal notice buffer where we have to go out at least 350 feet or reach 20 unique properties. This star right here indicates where these legal notice postings were made and advertised to the public traveling the 19 road corridor. The reason for the three legal notices, one in the paper, one on the property, and the legal notice postcards, is sometimes these legal notice signs get blown over, taken away. There's construction on 19 road. And so we're trying to reach people in a bunch of different ways to make sure that they have an adequate opportunity to voice any concerns that they might have at either a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting. And so we hope that that did provide enough information to the public to participate. Here is an existing zoning map of the city of Fruita. Well, you can see that this large property kind of highlighted in this brown color. That is the Iron Wheel subdivision. That's in the city limits. And then you see this orange color. That is the rural estate zone district. And so you can see on two sides, the west side of 19 road and then south of the property, you get that contiguity requirement of the 1/6 by state statute. Here's our future land use map showing this dotted line right here along the wash is our urban growth boundary. So anything west of that line is supported to be included in the city limits if obviously it meets that 1/6 contiguity or you have an election to annex, but we don't need to do that in this case. But it is supported to be annexed into the city if it does meet that criteria, like I mentioned. And then here's a photo or a clip of the Fruita land use or future land use map showing that urban growth boundary around the whole town. Onto approval criteria, there's 9 that need to be considered. This annexation application does meet and is consistent with community goals, the master plan. It does meet the state statute requirements of the 1/6 contiguity, and the annexation petition has been signed by there's one landowner, so all the landowners of the petition petitioning the city to annex the property. I should mention that the ordinance, and I'll touch on this in the suggested motion, there is a clerical error written into the ordinance. We accidentally left out 2 conditions that are in the staff report and what was supported by the planning commission as a recommendation to you as a city council. I will touch on that as the last slide in the presentation to make it clear and hopefully work its way into the motion. But they really draw into the criteria of number 9 is the area meets or can meet the existing infrastructure standards set forth by the city. And essentially the conditions were, and they're pretty common, is additional dedication of right of way on 19 road. And so that was 50 feet from the section line. So what's ever not there would need to be dedicated either by plat or by deed. And then the dedication of a 14-foot multi-purpose easement adjacent to that right of way. And so that's very standard in all of the annexations that we've done with right of way around there, so that we make sure that our circulation plan and what we're actually incorporating into the city limits do mesh up, and we do know what street section to go there and the multi-purpose easement to accommodate the existing infrastructure standards or future standards. So moving on to the planning commission, like I said before, they did recommend approval by a vote of 5-0 to the city council at their July 13th, 2021 meeting. No written public comments were received. However, public comments were made at the planning commission meeting. Review comments, no reviewer expressed any concerns. And the staff recommendation is approval of the annexation with the condition that there will be a dedication of additional right-of-way on 19 road and a 14-foot multi-purpose easement adjacent to that right-of-way. And so with this, the highlighted part or the bold part is the ordinance as amended, like I mentioned before. Most of it is obviously was in your packet, but just didn't include, and to include the following conditions recommended by staff and by the planning commission. And then these two would essentially be amending the ordinance to add this section into essentially what gets recorded for support of the annexation. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, that does conclude my presentation, and hopefully this is written in a way that makes it easy to just say out loud.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? A representative? Would you mind? Do you have anything you want to add? No, sir? All right.
Thank you for being here. I represent, my name's Ted Chabon. The slide said with Chabon Robertson Associates. That's the one thing I wanted to make note that 2 months ago, we sold our business. We're now cart planning. But that shouldn't be a big thing, have anything to do with the bigger agreements tonight. Our client is Copper Village, Copper Creek, and they're some of the best developers we've worked with. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Ted. All right, with that, we're going to open it up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this item? All right. If you please state your name and address for the record. We please ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Rick Beto. I live at 966 19 Road, adjacent to the property at hand. My question is, even for city council, I mean, this property was already approved by Mesa County for subdivision. My question is, why do they need to annex in the city only to tap into city sewer? So, I mean, it was $1 million. I have all the paperwork. We called city county, talk to Mesa County, have it all printed. What I don't understand is that it was approved for, I can't remember, I didn't read the piece of paper before I walked in again, how many houses it was. I thought that was a fair amount, I'm assuming, but this is rural America to us at 19 Road. We're Mesa County on one side, still Fruita address, but is on the other side of the street. You added iron wheel of 200 some homes or what it's going to be. The schools are already overpacked as of this year. I don't understand why we're packing more people in and we don't have enough supported municipalities to even take care of what we have. It's mind blowing to me, the neighbors. None of the neighbors decided to come. Everybody that received the notice, I called everybody, even the Cowboy Church. Nobody wanted to come. They said it's a losing battle. I mean, I'm assuming you send us those cards to give our opinion, who are not, because you're annexing the city, you want all the neighbors. What I don't understand is the land was vacant, it was approved, they didn't subdivide it. Wagon wheel goes in, you guys put the sewer line in, all of a sudden now, okay, we want to subdivide. Who knows how many houses we want to put in? I mean, we don't know yet. I don't know myself. But the reason being is because the sewer city's there. It was $1 million with the infrastructure in. I made my phone calls. I did my homework. I mean, I own a dairy farm right at 966. We have 250 people that come to our farm and buy milk every day. There are a lot of I would say 150 people are from Fruita. We have a chalkboard. We wrote down everything that's going on of what, because everybody's asked about wiring wheel. Why is this going in? Why is that going in? I mean, a lot of people don't know what's happening. And I think part of it is because they don't come to city council meetings, honestly. But that being said, they're going to invest a lot of money, investors, into this piece of property right next to mine. I hope they're aware of that. I own 250 cows myself. I own 1,000 pigs myself. We have multiple farms. I'm very well off. I don't care. I live very modestly, but I mean, the investors know that this smell is going to cross right across the fence, 30 feet. There's a 30-foot easement for the church to go back. I own the flagpole all the way down. I mean, that's pretty simple, no big deal, but I don't know if they're aware of what happens at 966 or what's aware that happens at the Cowboy Church. The preacher himself was a little concerned about all of it. He couldn't come tonight because he had youth meetings. He said, would you go? And I said, yes, I'll go. So I said, I'll be more than happy to voice my opinion. That's fine. It's not a problem. Preachers can't mix politics and religion. Very tough item. But on the same hand, I don't mind bringing all my pigs down. I don't mind bringing all my cows down. I'll put them all on the farm. It's not a problem. You guys, and I'm not, It's rural life on our side of the street. We like Fruita because it's rural life. Wagon Wheel reminds me of inner city life. That's where I grew up, inner city. When you see Wagon Wheel from a aerial, which I did, it looks like an inner city development.
Well, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
We appreciate your input on this. All right, is there anybody else that'd like to speak on this item? All right, hearing none, I'll bring it back to council. Anybody have any comments? Want to ask questions? Karen does.
No, I was just thinking, I mean, I appreciated what you said, and I think,
Well, part of I think part of it, Rick, is that our master plan shows that in the growth area, and that's been going on for 20 years. So I don't know if that answers it, and I don't know if. Yeah.
There is a big difference. You don't have, this is, my opinion is, this farmland out here, how Fruita started. Okay, all the industry is gone, so we're building houses. You guys think that they're gonna spend money? What's Fruita gain by actually adding all these homes? They absolutely nothing to add. Now, when you take that tax money, I have to pay for the infrastructure. I mean, that's common sense.
Right.
So by the time that comes back around,
If I may interrupt for just a second, if this is Mary Elizabeth Geiger, I'm here as city attorney. Nice to see you all again. It's been a while. If we're gonna public comment, I can't hear the gentleman speaking if he's not back up at the podium, and I apologize if that's me not being able to see. But also, I think if there are questions from the public, if they could just ask them all at once, and then council or staff can respond as appropriate, but probably not a good idea at this juncture to enter into a back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this one? All right, is there a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 2021-19, annexing approximately 25.96 acres of property located at 954 19 Road into the city of Fruita, and to include the following conditions as recommended in the staff report and by the planning commission. Number 1, 19 Road to have a total of 50 feet from the section line, and 2, dedication of a 14-foot multi-purpose easement adjacent to all the right-of-way.
Second.
Counselor Linhart,
yes.
Counselor Cry,
Yes.
Counselor Buck,
Yes.
Counselor O'Brien, Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our next public hearing, which is ordinance 2021-20, a second reading. A request to approve an ordinance zoning newly annexed property containing 25.96 acres of property located at 954 19 Road to a community residential zone. We've got our city planner, Henry Hempel, here to present on this one.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Members of council, my name is Henry. I'll be giving a staff presentation on the second reading of ordinance 2021-20. This is a rezone or to zone approximately 25.96 acres to community residential. And this needs to be accomplished within 90 days of annexing the subject property. And so fairly common in the city of Fruita for applicants to both combine the annexation application and the rezone application and move them through the process concurrently. The legal notice for this application is set forth in our land use code by section 17.01.130. And this was accomplished more than the 15-day minimum prior to the planning commission meeting. The postcards went out on June 23rd. The sign or the posting on the property happened on June 24th, and a legal ad in the newspaper was accomplished and submitted for publication on June 23rd, all within the 15-day requirement. Here's a picture of our public notice signs on the subject property. You can see this one does have the rezone on it, and it's advising the public of the public hearing dates of, it was July 13th, 2021 as the planning commission meeting, and tonight's meeting, September 21st, 2021. This is the legal notice buffer map. This is a clip of our GIS that shows the properties highlighted in this kind of blue turquoise color. Were the properties that were notified by postcard. The land use code requires either 350-foot radius or 20 unique properties, whichever one you get first. And typically, if we're advertising something in the city limits with the density around it, you would typically have that more than 20 unique properties within that 350-degree radius. When you go out 350 feet, you don't get the 20 unique, you just continue to go out until you get that. And so that's why you see a lot more properties highlighted in that blue color than you would normally, or that's why it kind of goes out further. Here's our existing zoning map of the subject property. You can see county property is located north and east, with the city of Fruita city limits essentially to the south and to the west. Here is an aerial photograph of the subject property to give you an idea. There's 19 road borders the west side. Here is our future land use map, which is adopted by resolution by the city council. This is typically done once every 10 years. And the urban growth boundary here in the dotted line helps us to make decisions on annexations, whether or not they should be supported, and is including kind of like the services that we're anticipating from the zoning and the density that would accompany that. And so what that means is anything in this yellow or this dotted line area recommended for zoning, if it's not either currently in the city limits or would be eligible to be rezoned, if there was kind of a change in the way that the public wanted the city to grow, that would essentially be added into this as a recommending document so that we could talk to property owners, developers, the planning commission, and the elected officials as the city council. And we could control that narrative by not just saying like, hey, just, propose a zone district and see what happens. This is to provide guidance for those folks to say, hey, like, how is your city planning on growing? And basically truth that. So what do your road sections need to look like? How is your wastewater treatment facility servicing that? And so on and so forth as far as the density is concerned. So this map really contains a lot of information. And in a nutshell, this community residential or this residential 4 to 8 dwelling units per acre is supported, is within the urban growth boundary and is recommended for that community residential zone, which is the petition before you tonight with this ordinance. Review criteria is set forth by section 17.13.060, and the application must meet at least 2 of these criteria, and it does meet criteria number 1 and number 5, with number 1 being that is compatible with surrounding land uses or competitors consistent with city goals, policies, and master plan. And so the land uses to the west, obviously Iron Wheel has been in the works for a little while, is being built out. And then the supporting zoning around it would perceive and be consistent with, the future land use map and the future growth of this area along this 19 road corridor. And so it does meet that criteria and is consistent with the master plan in that perspective. And then the zoning amendment is incidental to the annexation, and the proposed zoning is consistent again with those cities' goals, policies, and master plan as set forth in the Fruita in Motion comprehensive plan. And so staff does recommend that the property be rezoned or be zoned community residential or CR. And the planning commission did recommend approval by a vote of 5-0 at their July 13th public hearing. No written public comments were received and no reviewer expressed concerns. However, there were voiced concerns at the planning commission meeting, which you have those minutes in your packet, and had the opportunity to review those. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Ted, did you want to say anything as the applicant? Okay, all right. With that, we're going to open up to public comment. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on this item? All right, hearing none, we're going to bring it back to council. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, so I just want to say, we all appreciate that you're here tonight and you asked a lot of your neighbors to come and you're the only one that showed up, and that takes a lot of courage and participation in democracy. Henry, will you put slide 5 back up, please? I just feel bad. I don't want you to think like that we're just blowing you off or that we're not listening to you, because we are. That dotted line, that's our future land use map. That's where we're hoping we can infill all of that area. We think we can support it with the utilities that we have. We're not just annexing stuff way out here, way out here, way out here. We're trying to fill in that area. And this property in question is within that. So, I mean, it is part of our plan that we got to make decisions on filling this in. And I know our attorney doesn't necessarily want us going back and forth, but I just want to say, we're not just blowing you off. We hear you. And if I'm going to live next door to you, I'm going to enjoy the smells, that's just part of it. Right. But I just want to say, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your concerns. I think we all feel the growing pains of Fruita, because it'd be nice to keep it that little small town of 5,000 that it was when I moved here. And it's not anymore, but we do have a plan for sustaining all of this. And so when your friends and neighbors say it's a moot point, it's not because government doesn't care. It's because, as Henry's outlined, these things are falling within our plan. So I just wanted to voice that. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. I would say, and it's not our plan, it's not council's plan, but it's a community plan that a lot of effort went in and a lot of input from community members. So, I think that's what that
I did the master
shows for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance 2021-20, an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Fruita by zoning approximately 25.96 acres of property located at 95419 Road to a community residential zone.
I'll second.
Counselor O'Brien,
Yeah.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Yes.
Counselor Buck,
Yes.
Counselor Harvey,
Yes.
Counselor Lenhart.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you, everyone. We're going to move into our city manager's report.
Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to give you an update this evening. While it wasn't part of the criteria for the 2 public hearings earlier, but it will be when those properties are developed, I did feel the need to add that, just a reminder for the record, that each house that is built in that growth area has to pay transportation impact fees, has to pay parks, trails, open space, and impact fees as well. And then the funding that the city paid for to bring the sewer to that area has a recapture agreement that you all approved. So each house pays back the money for essentially for each unit that's developed, pays back for that construction of the sewer line, in addition to the grant that we had to help pay for that. And then that our wastewater reclamation facility, we are at half capacity for for all of the area within that yellow dotted line to be able to grow within, so that we have the infrastructure and take those impact fees to improve the transportation infrastructure, which is what we're doing with our circulation plan that we are nearing completion on. I also wanted to make sure, as you saw earlier, Mary Elizabeth Geiger is on virtually, as you're aware, with Garfield and Hecht. If you remember, when we solicited proposals for city attorneys, Mary Elizabeth interviewed with Paul Weiser. So we hired the 2 of them and their firm, Garfield and Hecht. So as you all know, Paul Weiser took a job with the town of Mountain Village, and that is starting essentially immediately. And but fortunately, we've been working with Mary Elizabeth pretty heavily on the land use code and other issues that we've worked with Paul on as well. But it could be a good opportunity for you all to schedule some time at a future meeting, whether it's, I know you have regular reviews with the city attorney, but to also have an initial discussion with Mary Elizabeth as well, if you'd like to schedule that in the future. But we appreciate her being, we were able to do virtual because it was pretty last minute to get her scheduled on for this meeting. I do have an update related to a possible donation of water to Fruita, Palisade, and Grand Junction. And the city of Fruita is party to a contract with the Bureau of Reclamation, City of Grand Junction, Town of Palisade, that allows for additional releases of water from Green Mountain Reservoir. We entered this agreement in, I believe it was April of 2015. So when available and allowed by the Bureau, and the historic users pool for fish recovery purposes in the 15-mile reach above Grand Junction. The town of Frisco is offering to donate 200 acre-feet of water to be released pursuant to this contract. So they have excess water and that they are looking to donate to this agreement that we have with the Bureau of Reclamation. I've talked with Mary Elizabeth, who is a water law attorney, and we've reviewed the contract that we already have. And we have, along with the city of Grand Junction, simply had request one more clarification from the town of Frisco and the water users about just confirmation as to whether two things will occur if we accept this donation in Palisade, Grand Junction, and Fruita. And those are, one, that the Bureau confirms that this 200 acre-feet of water is actually available to be used in the way that the contract dictates. And two, that the historic users pool has approved both the conditions of the contract for being able to use this water. And so the town of Frisco is asking for this support. They're under a fast timeline. So they are looking for our support by the end of the month because they have some deadlines at the beginning of October. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Elizabeth, but instead of losing those rights to be able to donate those, they have excess, so to be able to donate them for this purpose. And so
That's correct.
Great, thank you. So what reason, normally we wouldn't be bringing this up so quick, but we are conferring with Grand Junction and Palisade and working with Mary Elizabeth and their attorneys as well. And so basically what I'm asking for is if we have your approval, that if we receive clarification that it meets the agreement that we have, that we're able to go ahead and approve that donation by the end of the month. If for some reason it does not meet the agreement that we have, we of course would not proceed with that. So if you need more information, we can definitely try and answer some questions tonight. But we have gone through the agreement that we have as a city with Grand Junction, Palisade, and the Bureau. So essentially just seeing if you're comfortable with us accepting that water as a party to not just us, but Palisade and Grand Junction, as long as it meets the terms of the agreement that is being
Are we
donated.
getting any motion tonight for that?
We would.
What will we use the water for, and will we store it? Like,
So the water would just, it adds to, well, actually, I'm going to let Mary Elizabeth answer.
How does this
Fair-
work?
Fair enough. So this agreement was, like Mike said, back in 2015, and it's with the Bureau of Reclamation, Palisade, Grand Junction, and Fruita. And there's a critical reach of the Colorado River. It's called the 15-mile reach that I guess it would probably be, let's see, well, the Bureau has been assisting, but they're trying to recover fish habitat. That's a reach of the river that historically drops really low because, you know, the big diversions that you're well aware of for the Grand Valley Water Users Association and other, you know, big irrigation users in the area. And so what this would do is just allow an additional 200 acre feet to remain. So in other words, instead of the town of Frisco using it for its augmentation purposes or it being taken out at some other point, it's going to flow all the way down to just add water into this 15-mile reach. And so it is solely for fish recovery. Obviously, having more water in the river does, you know, provide for more recreational opportunities, which is part of the purpose of the agreement as well. But that that would be it. So it would not be water that Fruita, Grand Junction, or Palisade would actually be taking out and, using. But the water is going to be, available to the river, which, as you probably are aware, in Colorado, we're all about taking water out of the river. So this is an opportunity to keep some in.
Are there any negative consequences to doing this?
There are not. I mean, that's why this agreement is set up this way. It does, as Mike was saying, there were two questions that, kind of two criteria that need to be met to accept this donation. One is that the Bureau specifically finds that the town of Frisco has this water available and that it can be used for this purpose. And actually, we got confirmation from the Bureau today that yes, it meets that criteria. The second question, and Grand Junction had raised this and the Bureau hasn't yet responded, so we reached out again, is the historic users pool, that, not to get too much in the weeds of Colorado water law, but Green Mountain Reservoir was built, actually, it supplies water to the eastern slope. But what it does also do is it provides water to the west slope for what's called the historic users pool. And that's specifically augmentation water. And so that's another criteria that has to be met, is that HUP pool is also okay with this. I'm just going to state that I don't see why they wouldn't be, but that's the piece that Mike indicated we are waiting for confirmation. And assuming the answer to that is yes, there's no downside. The downside would only be moving forward with something that doesn't meet the criteria. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Unless you have other questions, we just recommend that you approve myself as a city manager to accept this agreement from the town of Frisco with the confirmation that Mary Elizabeth detailed.
And the only other thing I would add to that is, you can authorize the city manager under the charter to be able to sign agreements. Instance, I think the town of Frisco is just looking for support, that we don't oppose them doing this, but in the event there is anything, whether it's an amendment to this Bureau contract, which again, I don't think that's gonna be the case, but if they need a letter or anything like that, would like your vote to allow Mike to move forward in that capacity as well.
Mike, can you recommend a motion?
Yes. I would recommend that you authorize the city manager to approve the donation or accept the donation from the town of Frisco with the clarification that the two criteria as detailed by our city attorney are met.
So moved.
So second.
If you could just add to that motion, I'm sorry, and authorize the manager to take whatever action might be necessary to acknowledge that acceptance.
So moved again?
As amended?
Amended,
As amended?
yes, that would be great.
You Need a second? I'll be a second.
A second on the amendment.
Yes.
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 Sure.
Yes.
So we just told another town that they can put more water in the river. And we have no control who's going to take any water out of the river between here and that town, which is several hundred miles away.
Right.
But so it's all just theoretics. So, okay.
It's water less that they can take out upstream, I guess.
Right, and I mean, the.
Oh, you
Bureau-
didn't explain that. Now my sure becomes a yes. Okay, got it.
That's right.
All right, Mike, is there anything
Right.
else in your?
I do. I have a few priorities, updates for you on our housing strategy efforts. It is the major item on our workshop next week. We will have an overview of the 2022 proposed budget. However, that'll be fairly short because we will, at every meeting during October and November, we will be diving into presentations on each aspect of the 2022 budget. But we do have speakers coming in to talk about to talk about workforce and attainable housing and housing authorities. We have speakers from Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing, and the Grand Junction Housing Authority as well. We thought we might have the Gunnison Housing Authority, but they're not able to make it to this meeting. But I think we'll be fairly well covered with a number of the questions that you all have had to have a good dialogue during that workshop. The only other item in a week would just be a short item of any possible proclamation requests that we have, like we do on each workshop. We, along with that, with the housing strategies, we did present an update on the efforts that we are working on to the Livability Commission, who's very interested in that topic. And so most of those members are expressed that they're planning to come and listen in at the workshop as well. And we invited them to do that. The technical committee that we've been working with and creating, we do have confirmation on everybody that we've detailed in previous updates, and the two additional people that Councilor Bremen requested we add that council supported. And so we've been able to, Dan Karras, our planning development director, has been able to meet with them. So the technical committee's next meeting is October 13th. We do plan to provide council and the public an update at the first meeting in October, where we can formally appoint that technical committee. And then we do have the legal analysis that we commissioned Butler Snow, the law firm, to conduct, that should be ready hopefully by the early next week is what the time frame was, so that we'll have more information to update you on in the future. Broadband, we have done quite a bit of research and talked to many communities and a number of providers. And I would love to set a special workshop with you all to just talk about those options and get some feedback on broadband fiber to every home and business in the community. And I was going to throw a date out and see if it works. If it doesn't, we can work on a date, not take any more time tonight, and have Deb reach out to you. But wondering if Monday, October 11th would possibly work for the group to have a special workshop. Again, it would likely be less than no more than an hour, but an opportunity to go over different options and different ways different communities have dealt with it, but also some paths forward that we've learned as we've worked with Region 10 and we've worked with Department of Local Affairs and various unsolicited proposals before we go into a formal process. Yeah.
I can be back in town by then.
Columbus Day.
Also Indigenous Peoples' Day.
I may or may not be back. Could be.
Okay. The only other date I'd throw out would be that Thursday that week as well.
14th. The 11th works better for me.
Yeah, the 11th would be better than the 14th.
I cannot do the 14th.
I'd probably be late on the 11th.
And one third option could be we could do it prior to our second meeting, or prior to one of our council meetings, so 6 to 7. That's tough. Okay. All right. How about we go with the 11th? Is that all right? Okay, and we'll get that.
Wayne and I still haven't had cake. Maybe we can have cake for
There you go.
Memorial Day, Columbus Day.
We'll get that scheduled and posted on the calendar, and we'll get notice of, public notice of that meeting as well.
Public notice of the cake?
The cake, well,
We're singularly focused.
What time is it at 6:30?
yes, 6:30 on October 11th here. Then that's it. That's all the updates we have tonight.
All right, thanks, Mike. We're gonna bring it back for council reports and actions. Matthew, you want to start us off?
Sure. On the GGF front, the pool is open for applicants for the new executive director. They've had 19 applicants, and so that process is underway. I was on the Governmental Affairs Committee meeting today. And it's pre-session, so a lot of it is speculative. But two of the main topics were in terms of middle mile broadband funding, as well as transportation dollars on the western slope and alternative routes to I-70 and challenges with those. That's it.
Heather?
Planning Commission met and approved the last of the land use code stuff. And there was an interesting conversation about, there were some proposals about density bonuses and the things you could do to get those density bonuses. And we had kind of said those don't seem to really hit the mark, and so taking them off. And they accidentally got included within the Planning Commission meetings, and they were quick to correct that, hey, that wasn't actually supposed to be in there. But we had a good conversation about what do we really value and what do we want going forward. And so we had a good conversation around that. So hopefully when that stuff comes to before council, we'll continue that conversation. Parks and Rec finally met, and where are we with the new director? I believe interviews were happening.
Yes, we've conducted a number of first and second interviews, and we are almost firm on bringing finalists in on October 6th and 7th. And what we're looking at doing is having, there will be definitely an interview with the city's leadership team, as we always do, as we're interviewing for a new director. I will be taking the finalists around on tours where Parks and Recreation staff will participate on the tours and or in an interview setting as well. And then we're looking to do a brief meet and greet before the council meeting, where we invite the staff, invite each of you, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and any partners that honestly, anybody could show up, but it's not a pointed role. It's a role that, that I make a decision on at the end, but I want to get a lot of good feedback for people that this person would be working with closely. So we should have those details narrowed down in the next day or two, and then make sure everybody's aware of the time and how to participate. But we're excited we do have some strong candidates in that for that position.
Mike, will trailing spouses or partners be there? Are they coming in for this, or?
Not sure if they, but I believe there's a very good chance they will be. Yeah. It's just not confirmed, so.
All right, Ken?
Downtown board did not meet. AG&C did meet. We talked a lot about wolves. We talked a little bit about broadband. Band film festivals this weekend, and a couple of the beneficiaries are Colorado Canyons and Colorado National Monument Association. So if you're interested in those movies, go check them out. That's it.
All right, thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, the Historic Preservation Board will be hosting the Fruita History Fair this Saturday, the 25th, from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. at Cavalcade, which is the Masons building. And then also the Arts and Culture Board has an event on Sunday in relation to the Wellspring Project. People are going to be meeting at the community center at 10 a.m. and riding bikes or walking down to the mural site. And there's also at least a gal or a group of gals from a project called the Water Cycle Project, which they're traveling by bike along the Colorado River and essentially documenting people's stories. So everything from agriculture to people that enjoy, rafting or whatever it might be on the river. And so I think they're going to be at that event as well. And they've reached out to some of the participants of the Wellspring Project, some of the students that participated in that week-long project. So if you're interested in checking out the mural or being a part of that, that's 10 a.m. at the community center. That's all I've got.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Karen? Lori?
GBT is canceled for this month. And so this is I realize I'm throwing myself at your mercy on this one. I did some filming for the school bond issue. And when they asked my name and title, I, without thinking, said Lori Buck, Fruita City Council. I kind of realized I did that this weekend. I reached out to Angela today and said, that cannot go on there. So hopefully I caught it in time. What I got the idea was is it would be out mid-September, so hopefully still good to get that taken. Just Heads up, I did it without thinking, caught it, hopefully I didn't catch it too late.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right, I'll go on to my council reports and actions. So we had our tourism interviews for agencies. And so I think our contracts are up for marketing for the tourism board. And so we did those last week. And so I think we've narrowed it down to two candidates that we're going to be doing final discussion on with the tourism board and then bringing that back to council because council does the contracts for that. So that'll let you know as that comes up. I do want to get with Shannon because I think the GJEP thing is on the same time as our tourism board meeting. So I'll get with him on that. If you don't know, Fall Festival is coming up this weekend. And so the chambers have a lot of things going on. Get prepared for that. And it is only a 2-day event this year, not a 3-day. So hopefully we'll have a great turnout. It'll be another great event for Fruita. So that's all I have.
I have two quickies. I
Wait,
forgot.
I was gonna adjourn. Go ahead.
Colorado National Monument's having a plein air, like 20, almost 30 artists in town painting up there the next week. And there's gonna be an art opening next weekend. Downtown Grand Junction, but also Tour of the Moon is Sunday. So
Yeah, we got a lot going on this weekend. So. All right, with that, we're gonna adjourn at 8:06 PM. Thank you.
No.